The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual sounds of many species talking at once. The room was huge, with tall crystal walls that changed colors with the mood of the meeting. Today they glowed a calm blue. Hundreds of seats formed circles around a central platform where speakers would stand. Many different aliens sat in these seats, some with scales, some with fur, some with too many eyes or arms. Junior diplomatic aide Sung stood near the back wall. This was only his third council meeting. He was tall for his species, with dark eyes that missed nothing. His gray council uniform felt stiff and new. He watched the various ambassadors chat before the meeting started. Some floated in special tanks. Others needed breathing masks. The council had members from over 50 planets, all working together to keep peace in the galaxy. Elder Huan stood beside Sung. The elder had pale blue skin that had wrinkled with age and white hair tied neatly back. He had worked in the council for over 60 years and knew all its secrets. "Watch carefully today," Elder Huan told Sung. The trade dispute between the Mori and Dahl systems might finally be settled. Sung nodded, but his attention was on Ambassador Jia of the Vedreni. Her skin glowed with beautiful patterns that shifted as she spoke with her assistants. The Vedreni were known for their beauty and their pride. Jia had the most seats in the council after her people's recent military victories. The meeting began when Council Leader Rim tapped her staff 3 times on the floor. The talking stopped. Reports began about trade routes, new colonies, and border disputes. Sung took careful notes on his datapad. Most of it was boring, but Elder Huan insisted he learn everything. Then Councillor Tai stood up suddenly, without being called. This broke protocol. Council Leader Rim frowned, but Tai was already walking to the center platform. Tai was from a desert world, with 6 fingers on each hand and insect-like features. His mandibles, the mouth parts that looked like pincers, clicked rapidly, showing his nervousness. The room fell silent. This was unusual. "Esteemed colleagues," Ta said, his voice shaking slightly, "I must interrupt with urgent news. Our long-range sensors have detected an approaching vessel in Sector 7. Council Leader Rim looked annoyed. "Is this really important enough to interrupt our agenda, Counselor? Unknown ships enter our space regularly." "This one is different," Tai continued. His 6-fingered hands trembled as he pressed a button on his wrist device. "Its design," he paused, his mandibles clicking faster, "is unmistakably human." The word human fell like a stone into water. Ripples of whispers spread across the chamber. The crystal walls shifted from blue to an anxious yellow. Ambassador Jia stood up, her luminescent skin pulsing with dismissive blue patterns. "Humans," she scoffed. "They vanished centuries ago after the Helios conflict. Your sensors must be wrong." Ta pressed another button. Above the central table, a hologram appeared. It showed a sleek warship moving through space. Unlike the rounded, organic shapes of most council ships, this vessel was angular and predatory. It had sharp lines and obvious weapon ports along its hull. It moved with purpose, like a hunting animal. "The ship's energy signature and design match our records of human vessels," Ta said. "There is no mistake." The calm meeting exploded into chaos. The crystal walls turned deep red, reflecting the panic in the room. "Seal the sector," shouted a representative with 4 arms, rising from his seat. "Alert all military vessels," cried another, her feathered crest standing straight up in alarm. "We should send a peace envoy immediately," suggested a floating jellyfish-like being. "Peace? With humans?" laughed a reptilian ambassador bitterly. "Do you know nothing of history?" Some watched the panic with confusion. He leaned toward Elder Huan. "I don't understand," he whispered. "It's just one ship. Why is everyone so afraid?" Elder Huan's ancient eyes studied the hologram carefully. "You wonder why a single ship causes such terror," he whispered back. "You were born in peaceful times, young one. The stories of human warfare are not exaggerations." Sung frowned. "In school, we learned that humans were just another species that couldn't adapt to galactic politics." Elder Juan shook his head slowly. The Education Ministry sanitizes history, he said quietly. During the Helios conflict, 17 Krell warships surrounded a single human colony. The Krell were the greatest military power at that time. They expected an easy victory. What happened? Sung asked. 3 human ships arrived to defend the colony. Just 3. Elder Juan's voice grew distant, as if seeing the past. When it was over, 14 Krell ships were destroyed. The humans lost 2 ships, but they saved their colony. Sung stared at the elder in disbelief. That's impossible. The odds. Humans don't care about odds. Elder Juan interrupted. That's what makes them different. Where other species surrender when defeat seems certain, humans fight harder. They improvise. They sacrifice. And they never, ever forget their enemies. In the center of the chamber, Council Leader Rim was trying to restore order. Her amplified voice boomed over the chaos. We will not panic. The Defense Committee will meet immediately. All sectors will be placed on alert status. This council will reconvene in 6 hours with a response plan. Ambassador Jia pushed her way to the central platform. This is absurd, she declared. The humans have been gone for 300 years. Even if this is a human ship, it's just one vessel. The Vedrani Confederation alone has thousands of warships. We should simply destroy it and be done with this matter. Elder Juan sighed. Always the same mistake, he murmured to Sung. Underestimating humans is what started the Helios conflict. Council Leader Rim's eyes narrowed at Jia. Perhaps you should review the classified records of the final days of that conflict, Ambassador, before suggesting such action. Sung watched as fear settled over the room like a heavy blanket. The greatest leaders of the galaxy, who controlled millions of ships and billions of lives, were terrified of a single vessel. What will happen now? Sung asked his mentor. Elder Juan's face was grim. Now, young Sung, we wait, and we hope that whatever brought humans back to our stars is not vengeance for past wrongs. The hologram of the human warship continued to rotate above them, its weapons pointing in all directions, like a predator showing its teeth. The stars stretched like bright lines, then snapped back to tiny dots as the HS Defiance slowed from hyperspace travel. The massive human warship hung against the blackness of space, its dark hull reflecting little light. Red and blue running lights pulsed along its sides, marking the ship's 1,000-meter length. Captain Yun stood on the bridge, her back straight and her dark uniform crisp. At 45, she had the confidence of someone who had earned her position through hard work and skill. Her short black hair was streaked with a few strands of silver, and her eyes missed nothing as she studied the main view screen. Status report, she commanded, her voice calm but firm. The bridge was quiet and efficient. 20 crew members worked at different stations, each focused on their tasks. The bridge design was simple but practical, a central command chair surrounded by workstations in a semicircle, with the main view screen covering the front wall. Lieutenant Jin glanced up from his console. He was younger than the captain, with quick hands that moved confidently over the controls. All systems nominal, Captain. We've arrived at the coordinates. No immediate threats detected, but I'm picking up significant communication activity across multiple frequencies. Yun nodded, her face revealing nothing. They've noticed us. She walked slowly around the bridge, looking at each station. The Defiance was humanity's best ship, carrying the most advanced technology Earth had developed during 300 years of isolation. The bridge crew had trained for years for this mission. This was first contact after centuries of hiding. Tactical display, Yun ordered. The main screen shifted to show their position relative to nearby star systems. Small dots marked the locations of alien ships, already moving toward them from all directions. Look at them scramble, said Weapons Officer Day, not bothering to hide his smile. He was a large man with a shaved head and a scar running along his jaw. They act like we're a hurricane heading for their shores. We might as well be, said Navigator Kang, her fingers dancing over her console. She was the youngest officer on the bridge, barely 25. The history files say the last time humans were in this sector, we destroyed half the Krell fleet. Captain Yun raised her hand slightly, and the bridge fell silent again. We're not here to remind them of old wars. Our mission is diplomatic. Tell that to them, Captain, said Lieutenant Jin, looking concerned. Long-range sensors show ships moving from 17 different systems, all heading our way. Ian returned to her command chair and sat down, her posture perfect. Right on schedule. High Command predicted this response. Let's give them time to organize their welcome party. Hours passed. The bridge crew took turns on break, but Captain Ian remained in her chair, watching as more and more ships appeared on their sensors. The alien vessels kept their distance, forming a loose ring around the Defiance. Communications Officer Mina, a small woman with intense focus, suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, I've been monitoring their transmissions. I don't think they know we can decode their languages. And? Ian asked. They're terrified of us, Mina said, sounding surprised. These transmissions suggest they've activated emergency protocols across 17 systems, military reserves being called up, civilian ships ordered to safe zones, planetary shields being activated where available. She looked up from her screen. One transmission called us the Ghost of Terra, returned from the grave. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Dad laughed, but there was little humor in it. All this for one ship? Navigator Kang asked. We're not just a ship to them, Captain Ian said quietly. We're a memory. A bad one. Lieutenant Jin's console beeped. Captain, a small vessel has broken from the main group. It's approaching under minimal power. No weapons signatures detected. On screen, Ian ordered. The view screen showed a small rounded shuttle with white lights blinking along its hull. Those are white lights in a specific pattern, Mina observed. In Council protocol, that's the equivalent of a white flag. They're coming in peace. Dunn stood up. Humans became legends while we rebuilt. Now we'll see what kind of legends we've become. She straightened her uniform. Prepare the reception bay. Standard welcome protocols. Should we go armed, Captain? Dai asked. Ian considered this. Sidearms only. We don't want to appear threatening, but we won't be defenseless either. As the captain turned to leave the bridge, Engineer Han called from his station. Captain, should I power down the main weapons? As a gesture of goodwill. Captain Ian stopped and turned. No, keep all systems at normal operation. They need to know we come in peace by choice, not because we lack options. The reception bay was a large room near the bottom of the ship. It had a high ceiling and walls of polished metal. One wall could open to space, protected by a force field that kept the air in while allowing solid objects to pass through. Captain Yun stood with a small team. Lieutenant Jin, Communications Officer Mina, and Security Chief Yoon, a stern woman whose hand never strayed far from her weapon. They watched as the alien shuttle passed through the force field and settled gently on the deck. Remember, Yoon said quietly to her team, what we do here will set the tone for all future human interactions. We represent not just this ship, but all of humanity. The shuttle's door slid open slowly. A ramp extended to the floor of the bay. 3 aliens emerged. They were of different species, one tall and thin with gray skin, another short with 4 arms and blue scales, and the third floating slightly above the ground, its body semi-transparent. All 3 wore similar robes marked with the symbol of the Galactic Council. The tallest alien stepped forward, its movements careful and measured. It raised all 4 of its hands in what was clearly meant to be a peaceful gesture. I am Diplomat Ural of the Galactic Council, it said in perfect English. We come to greet the human vessel and inquire about your intentions in Council space. Captain Yun stepped forward and bowed slightly. I am Captain Yun of the human starship Defiance. We come in peace, seeking to re-establish diplomatic relations after our long absence. The aliens exchanged glances. The floating one rippled slightly, a sign of relief or surprise. Your arrival has caused quite a stir, Diplomat Ural said carefully. After 3 centuries of silence, the sudden appearance of a human warship is concerning. We understand, Captain Yun replied. But the time has come for humanity to rejoin the galactic community. We hope that sending a single ship would be less threatening than a fleet. The 4-armed alien made a sound like quiet laughter. Captain, you must understand. To many species, a single human warship is more threatening than a fleet from any other race. From her position behind the captain, Minna whispered, the 3 alien armadas have increased their distance. They're maintaining a safety perimeter of at least 50,000 kilometers. Captain Yun's expression didn't change, but something like sadness flickered in her eyes. It seems we have much work to do to change our reputation. The floating alien moved forward slightly, or perhaps it said in a musical voice, you will confirm why that reputation exists in the first place. The neutral station called Harmonious Exchange floated in empty space, exactly halfway between Council territory and the position of the human ship Defiance. The station was an old trading post, built hundreds of years ago. It had a wheel shape that turned slowly to create gravity. Lights glowed from its many windows, and small ships came and went from its docking bays. Inside the station, in the main conference room, Captain Yun sat at one end of a long metal table. She wore her formal uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder, a blue circle with green continents. 4 council representatives sat across from her, with Mediator Su in the middle. Mediator Su was small, only coming up to Yun's elbow when standing. He had smooth gray skin and large, kind eyes. His job was to help different species talk to each other without fighting. He had done this job for 40 years and was respected by all. Thank you for agreeing to meet here, Captain, Mediator Su said in a gentle voice. It has been 300 years since humans sat at the same table as council members. Captain Yun nodded, her face calm. Earth appreciates this opportunity for peaceful discussion. The council representatives looked less comfortable. A tall bird-like alien with bright yellow feathers kept her wings slightly raised, ready to move quickly. Next to her, a being made mostly of water contained in a special suit wouldn't look directly at Yun. Mediator Su placed his 6-fingered hands flat on the table. Captain, I believe we should address the great concern your arrival has caused. Many in the council believe humans have returned for revenge. We have no interest in revenge, Captain Yun said. Earth wants to rejoin galactic society, to trade and share knowledge. Then why send a warship? Asked the bird-like alien sharply. Why not a trading vessel or a civilian ship? Captain Yun's expression didn't change. Would you have allowed a civilian ship to approach, or would you have captured it for study? We sent the Defiance because we needed a ship that could defend itself if necessary. Mediator Su nodded slowly. Your caution is understandable, but you must understand the fear your species creates. He touched a control on the table, and a hologram appeared between them, showing old battle footage. Your people are described as the storm that walks, explained Mediator Su, his voice still serene despite the violent images playing in the air. Stories tell of humans fighting while missing limbs, surviving in environments that would kill most species, and developing tactics that defy conventional strategy. The hologram showed a human soldier continuing to fight despite severe injuries. Another clip showed humans surviving in toxic atmospheres with minimal protection. A final image showed a small human fleet outmaneuvering a much larger enemy force. These stories have grown with time, Mediator Su continued. Children are told that humans will come in the night if they misbehave. Some religious groups believe humans were a punishment sent by their gods. Captain Yun watched the images with sadness in her eyes. We defended ourselves, she stated firmly. The Krell Empire gave us no choice. They attacked our colonies without warning or provocation. The water-based alien made bubbling sounds of disagreement. The historical Sung found reports written by council observers at the time. They had known the Krell were planning to attack Earth, but the council had decided not to interfere. Some members had even secretly helped the Krell, hoping to remove humans from galactic politics. But the plan had failed. Humans had fought back with unexpected strength and determination. The war had lasted 12 years, ending with the complete destruction of the Krell homeworld and most of their empire. The last entry in the file was most shocking. After the war, humans had not disappeared because they were weak or defeated. They had chosen to isolate themselves because they no longer trusted the Council or any alien species. Some copied as many files as he could to a small data device. His hands shook as he worked. At the same time, in a private room on another level of Council headquarters, Councillor Ta had gathered 5 other Council members. They sat in a circle, with no recording devices allowed in the room. Their meeting was completely secret. The human captain claims they come in peace, Ta said, his mandibles clicking nervously. But we cannot take that risk. Agreed, said a reptilian counselor with scales that shifted colors with his emotions. Currently, they were deep red. What if this is just the first ship? An advanced scout. Exactly, Ta nodded. We cannot allow humans to return. The Defiance must be destroyed before they summon their fleet. The tiny weapons in the ceiling fired with a high-pitched sound. Beams of energy shot toward the humans. But Captain Eon was already moving. With strength surprising for her size, she flipped the massive table onto its side. Food and dishes crashed to the floor. The table now stood like a wall between the humans and the ceiling weapons. Stay down. Un shouted to her officers as more energy beams hit the table, burning holes through its edge. The council representatives jumped back, looking shocked. Only Councillor Kree didn't seem surprised. She touched her wrist device and spoke into it. The humans still live. Activate the secondary plan. Mediator Sue's face showed horror. What have you done? This was to be a peaceful meeting. More weapons emerged from the walls. Captain Yun pulled a small device from her boot and pressed a button. A blue field of energy spread around the human delegation, blocking more shots. We came in peace, Captain Yun said, her voice hard and cold. Remember that. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, alarms rang through the ship. Lieutenant Jin stood from the captain's chair, his face tense. Status report, he ordered. Energy weapons detected at the meeting site, reported Officer Mena. The captain's emergency signal was activated 30 seconds ago. And that's not all, said Navigator Kang. The Council fleet is moving from hiding positions. 17 warships, coming in fast. Jin's jaw tightened. They planned this all along. Prepare for combat. Sir, Weapons Officer Day said, his hands already working his controls. Countermeasures ready, weapons hot. Lieutenant Jin stood tall, his decision made. Defensive protocols only, he ordered. No casualties. Captain Yun was clear. We don't fire first, and we don't kill unless absolutely necessary. The Defiance hummed as its systems powered up. Its dark hull began to glow slightly with energy. When the Council fleet moved to engage, coming from all sides with weapons ready, the human ship responded. The Defiance moved in ways that seemed impossible for a vessel its size. It spun and rolled, avoiding energy beams and missiles with perfect precision. Where it couldn't avoid an attack, invisible shields flashed into existence, absorbing the energy. Deploying EM pulse arrays, Day announced. Small objects shot from the Defiance, spreading out in all directions. When they reached certain points, they activated, sending waves of electromagnetic energy toward the attacking ships. The pulses were carefully calibrated, strong enough to disable weapons and engines, but not life support or other critical systems. One by one, the Council ships went dark, drifting helplessly in space. Not destroyed, but unable to fight. Back on the station, Captain Yun and her officers had fought their way to a small maintenance corridor. They moved quickly toward the docking bay where their shuttle waited. Captain, said her security officer, checking a small screen. The Defiance reports the Council fleet has been neutralized. No casualties on either side. A small smile touched Captain Yun's lips. Good. Jin followed orders perfectly. They reached the docking bay and ran toward their shuttle. But then the whole station shook violently. Alarms began to sound throughout the facility. "What was that?" asked one of the officers. Captain Yun checked her wrist device, her eyes widening. "Something big just powered up in this sector." Many somethings. All across the sector, old machines were waking up. Hidden in asteroids, buried on moons, floating in empty space, weapons platforms built by the Krell Empire centuries ago were activating one by one. Their ancient programming recognized the energy signatures of both Council and human ships as enemies. On the station's main control room, Mediator Sue and the Council representatives watched in horror as dozens of red dots appeared on their screens. "What are those?" demanded Kree, her feathers standing straight up in fear. "Krell automated weapon platforms," said a technician, his voice shaking. "They must have been dormant for centuries. The energy from the battle must have triggered them." A massive beam of energy sliced through space, cutting a Council ship in half despite its shields. Another beam headed straight for the station. The station rocked again as the beam hit it. Lights flickered and gravity wavered. People screamed and ran in the corridors. "Our shields won't hold against another hit like that," shouted the station's commander. Then a voice came over all communication channels, clear and strong. "This is Captain Yun of the HSS Defiance," she broadcast. "We've identified the threat as dormant Krell Empire automated defense platforms. They're targeting all ships and stations in this sector." On the main screen, they could see the Defiance moving to position itself between the station and the nearest weapon platform. "We have the technology to counter these weapons," Captain Yun continued. "We offer assistance against this common threat. Your choice, counselors. Trust us or face this alone." Silence fell over the control room. Kree and the other representatives looked at each other, then at Mediator Sue. "The sane humans you just tried to murder are offering to save your lives," Mediator Sue said quietly. "Perhaps you should reconsider your opinion of them." On the screen, another Krell weapon fired. The Defiance moved with impossible speed, intercepting the beam with its shields. The human ship shuddered but held. Counselor Kree stepped forward, her proud posture gone. She activated the communication channel. "This is Counselor Kree of the Galactic Council," she said, her voice tight. "We accept your assistance, Captain Yun." Outside the station, the Defiance continued to move between the ancient weapons and their targets. More beams fired. The human ship took hit after hit on its shields, which glowed brighter with each impact. But it didn't retreat. In the shuttle bay, Captain Yun received the message. She nodded to her officers. "Let's get back to our ship," she said. "It seems we have a chance to show the Council what humans are really like." Space around the neutral station turned into a battlefield. The ancient Krell weapons fired in all directions. Their energy beams cut through shields as if they were paper. 3 Council ships had already been destroyed. The station's shields were failing. The Defiance moved between the station and the nearest Krell platform. Its shields glowed blue each time they took a hit. The human ship fired back with weapons that no one in the Council had seen before. "Our shields are at 60%, reported Lieutenant Jin on the Defiance bridge. "We can't keep this up alone." Captain Yun returned to her ship just in time. She ran onto the bridge, still wearing her formal uniform, now torn and dirty from fighting her way out of the trap. "Status report," she ordered, taking her seat. 23 Krell weapons platforms active in this sector," said Navigator Kang. "They're following old programming, attacking anything that moves." "The Council fleet?" Captain Yun asked. "Most ships disabled by our E-impulses," said Weapons Officer Da. "They're sitting targets." Captain Yun nodded, her decision made. "Reactivate their systems. Send them our tactical data. We do this together, or we all die together." Officer Minna looked up from her station. "Captain, after what they just tried to do to us." "We're not them," Captain Yun said firmly. Send the reactivation codes and the tactical data. Now, one by one, the Council ships came back online. Their captains were surprised to find their systems working again, and even more surprised to receive detailed information about the Krull weapons, their locations, weaknesses, and attack patterns. This is Captain Yun of the Defiance. She broadcast to all ships. These platforms target specific energy signatures. If we coordinate our attacks using the data we sent you, we can destroy them before they destroy us. There was a pause. Then one Council ship captain responded, "Why are you helping us after our misunderstanding?" "Because that's what humans do," Captain Yun replied simply. "We help when we can. Now follow our lead." The joint operation against the Krell automata became a lesson in cooperation. Human tactical systems coordinated the diverse alien fleet, transforming chaos into harmony. The Defiance moved to the front, taking the heaviest fire on its stronger shields, while Council ships attacked from the sides and rear. In the Council headquarters, Sung and Elder Huan watched the battle through live feeds. The main chamber was packed with representatives from all worlds, watching in silence as humans and Council forces fought side by side. "They could have left," Sung whispered. "After the assassination attempt, they could have just jumped to hyperspace and gone home." Elder Huan nodded. "That's what everyone expected. That's what the history books said humans would do. Strike back with overwhelming force. But history books can be wrong." Hour after hour, the battle continued. The Defiance took hit after hit but kept fighting. Its hull glowed red in some places from the heat of enemy weapons, but for each hit it took, it destroyed a Krull platform. Council ships followed the human vessel's lead, learning from its tactics. Ships that had never worked together before now moved in perfect formation. Species that had been enemies for generations now protected each other. Finally, Captain Yun's voice came over the communication channel again. "Final platform located. Defiance moving to engage." The human ship, its hull now scared and damaged, accelerated toward the largest Krell platform. This one was the size of a small moon with multiple weapon ports. "Their shields are too damaged," said a Council captain. "They'll never survive a direct attack." But the Defiance didn't slow down. It fired all weapons as it approached, weakening the platform's defenses. Then, at the last moment, it released a small object and turned away sharply. The object, no bigger than a shuttle, hit the Krell platform and exploded with incredible force. The platform broke apart, pieces flying in all directions. The wave of energy from the explosion washed over the Defiance, pushing it tumbling through space. "Defiance, respond," called several Council captains at once. For long moments, there was no answer. Then, "This is Defiance. We're still here. Damage control teams working. Life support stable." A cheer went up from Council ships. In the headquarters chamber, many representatives stood and applauded. Some even cried with relief. When the final platform fell, Captain Yun addressed the Council directly from the Defiance's bridge. The large screen in the Council chamber showed her standing tall despite a cut on her forehead and her damaged uniform. "People of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice clear and strong. "Today we faced a common enemy together and won. I hope this can be the beginning of a new relationship between humanity and the Council." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Many of you wonder why humans disappeared 300 years ago, and why we've returned now. The truth is simple. Humanity didn't disappear to plan revenge. We retreated to heal, to rebuild what was lost. This single warship was sent to test if reconciliation was possible, or if fear would still rule." In the silent Council chamber, Councillor Ta hung his head. Others looked uncomfortable, remembering their panic at the arrival of just one human ship. "We made a mistake 3 centuries ago," Captain Yun continued. "We judged all alien species by the actions of the Krell Empire and those who helped them. That was wrong. Today, I saw Council ships risk themselves to save others. I saw courage and honor. Perhaps we can start again, as equals this time. Council Leader Rim stepped forward. Captain Eon, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally invite humanity to rejoin our community of worlds, and I offer our sincere apology for recent misunderstandings. Captain Eon smiled slightly. Apology accepted. The Defiance will remain in this sector while our diplomats arrange a more formal agreement. If that's acceptable to the Council. It is more than acceptable, said Leader Rim. It is welcome. 6 months later, Sung stood in the new human embassy on the Council homeworld. The building was simple but elegant, with large windows looking out over the capital city. As junior diplomatic liaison to Earth, Sung was responsible for helping aliens understand humans, and humans understand aliens. Elder Huan visited often, no longer as Sung's supervisor but as his friend. Today they stood together at the largest window, watching ships come and go from the planet. The galaxy misjudged humanity, Elder Huan admitted, his old hands clasped behind his back. They feared your capacity for violence without understanding your equal capacity for peace. They saw monsters, Sung replied, watching ships of all designs orbiting peacefully above. One ship stood out, the Defiance, now fully repaired, its dark hull gleaming in the sunlight. Now they see potential allies who keep their promises. Formidable, yes, but honorable. A small shuttle left the Defiance, heading down to the planet. Captain Eon was coming for the weekly diplomatic meeting. Since the battle, she had become something of a celebrity. Children asked for her autograph. Council military academies studied her tactics. Will more human ships come? Elder Huan asked. Sung nodded. 3 more next month. Trade vessels this time, not warships. And the truth about the Helios conflict, will that be made public? Gradually, Sung said. Some council members still resist full disclosure, but humans insist on truth as part of any lasting relationship. Outside, the Defiance shared orbit with vessels that once would have flooded at its approach. Small council ships flew close to it, their captains curious rather than afraid. It's strange, Elder Huan said softly. The humans I feared all my life turn out to be the allies we most needed. Fear blinds us to truth. Not anymore, Sung replied as he turned to prepare for the meeting. Now, understanding has a chance. Below them, Captain Eon's shuttle landed gently on the embassy's pad. The human captain stepped out, straightened her uniform, and looked up at the sky where her ship orbited peacefully alongside the ships of former enemies. Fear was giving way, slowly, to understanding. The end